Welcome to Sourdough Starter for Beginners. Woo! Over the past couple of years, we've got a lot of sourdough starter questions. And we've made this awesome video to answer them all for you. What is a sourdough starter? A sourdough starter is a fermented dough with a natural wild yeast. It makes sourdough bread rise and is an alternative to dry yeast. How much do I feed my sourdough starter? Feed your starter equal parts of flour and water. So 50 grams each of starter, flour, and water, or a quarter cup of starter, a third a cup of flour, and a quarter cup of water. What is a discard? And what should you do with it? A discard is sourdough starter that you empty out of your jar so you can feed it without it overflowing. You can use this discard to bake, or you can throw it away. What is an active starter? It is a sourdough starter that's been fed and is ready to bake with. What type of flour should I use? You can use any type of flour you like. We've noticed AP white flour works really fast. Some other flours may take a bit longer to become an active sourdough starter. Should you mix flours? If you like to mix flours, you can. It will still work out great. It just depends on your preference. Should you keep the sourdough starter in the fridge or on the counter? If you plan to bake a lot, you can leave it on the counter and feed it twice a day, about 12 hours apart. If you don't bake a ton, you can keep the starter in the fridge. You'll need to take it out once a week and feed it twice that day, 12 hours apart. Then you can put it back in the fridge for another week. What temperature do I need to keep my starter at? The starter needs to be kept at room temperature while it's becoming active. However, you can put it in the fridge, but to feed it, it will need to be at room temperature. What is room temperature? Room temperature is 20 to 22 degrees Celsius or 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Can sourdough starter sit directly in sunlight? No. Sunlight can kill the active yeast in your starter, so make sure to keep the starter out of direct sunlight. Do I close the lid tightly or keep it a little loose? Keep the lid a little bit loose, but make sure it is resting on top. This will help in case it overflows and will prevent pressure buildup. When do I feed my sourdough starter? If you keep your starter on the counter, you need to feed it twice a day, 12 hours apart. If you keep it in the fridge, just take it out once a week and feed it twice that day, also 12 hours apart. Then it can go back in the fridge for another week. What temperature water do I use when I feed it? You can use cool or room temperature water. Don't use hot water though, it can kill the yeast. When can I bake with my sourdough starter already? As soon as your starter begins to bubble up and double in size, it's ready to bake with. Why does the starter smell funny? Sourdough starters definitely smell funky, but do not worry. As long as there's no black mold in your starter, don't be afraid of the sour, funky smell. It's part of the fun. Why isn't my starter growing? The main reason sourdough starter doesn't grow is temperature and time. If you have the starter sitting at the right temperature, which is room temperature, then just keep feeding it twice a day, 12 hours apart, and it'll eventually become active. Can you overfeed a starter? If you feed your starter more than twice a day, it can nullify the effect of the wild yeast, making it take longer to become active. Can you freeze a sourdough starter? Yes, you can freeze a sourdough starter, but make sure you put it in a Ziploc bag and do not freeze it in the glass jar. Ensure to defrost it before feeding. Why is there a clear liquid on the top of my starter? The clear liquid on the top of your starter is telling you that it is hungry. You need to feed that starter. You can pour out the liquid or you can mix it in. We found it works fine both ways. Does sourdough starter go bad? Sourdough starter can go bad, but I've never seen it happen. These are designed to live long lives. The oldest starter in the world is over 100 years old. So your starter might outlive you, as long as you get someone to feed it.
Do you need self-rising flour?
Nope, any flour will do. Use the flour you enjoy the most.
Should I use tap, bottled, or mineral water to feed it?
You can use any water you like, provided your tap water is safe to drink. We only ever use tap water and we get great results.
Is my starter dead? And can I bring it back to life?
If you think your starter is dead, or it has a lot of liquid on top, or isn't bubbling up and becoming active, need not worry. Just keep feeding it twice a day, on the counter, 12 hours apart. Keep it out of direct sunlight and at room temperature, and it will come back to life. These little guys are super resilient.
Thanks so much for all the great questions. I hope I've covered everything, but just in case I missed anything, please leave a comment below. We'll do our best to answer it for you. Stay tuned for our tutorial on how to make and feed a sourdough starter. Today we're gonna learn how to make a sourdough starter. All you need is 2 simple ingredients, water and flour. The yeast is naturally occurring and comes out of thin air. Today we're gonna learn how to feed a sourdough starter. So don't forget to like and subscribe for more DIY sourdough. Maintaining your sourdough starter is important. It is a living thing, and if you don't feed it, it'll die. Don't worry, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help, and I'm here to show you how to keep that starter alive. Thank you for watching DIY Sourdough on Weird Wild Pizza with Papa Za. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more DIY Sourdough.